Okay, once you've got all your chamfers, it should look like this. Chamfers on each end of your 7 3/4 on each edge. Your 5-inch pieces, each end, and the edges. Then what you're going to do is sand the faces. Get off any marks. I have pencil marks here, so I'm going to get the edges or the marks off of here. Make it smooth, as well as those tracing marks. You also want to get them off the back, so on. I'm not going to go off the back though right now, because you know how to sand. So, what we need to do now is learn how to read a set of plans. So here's our set of plans. So here is the 7 3/4, and here is the 5-inch. Now, right here you have this dimension line. It's coming out and it's acting as it's extending this part here of your board to this part. So we can see from this point,
let me see the board, your actual board.
Over to this point is 5 inches, which is 5 inches. Okay? Now we're locating the grain direction to make sure that we're getting the length, the width, and the thickness correct. So we know that these are 2 inches wide. So let's do the long one first. So we can see from here, from the one end up to the bottom of this notch is 7/8 of an inch. So let's do that. And we're doing it on both boards. So right here, I get my pencil, my tape measure. Here's 3/8, there's 5/8, and here is 7/8. So I'm going to do my crow's foot, pull back, pull back. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you line these up correctly, okay? So what it's going to end up looking like is this. But we need our chamfers to be facing up, and then these notches facing in towards each other. So for these, I'm just going to go A really quick, so that I know I'm going in this direction and in this direction. Okay? So now I'm going to come up 7/8 from here. So here is 3/8, 5/8, there's 3/4, and here is 7/8. So I make my crow's foot. Pull one direction, pull the other direction. And there's 7/8. Now what I need to do is look at our drawing again. So we just made this mark here. We'll get our square and come across. Now we're starting from this end and we're going up 1 7/16 inches to the top of the notch. So again, I'm going to hook my tape on here. I'm going to go to 1 add 7/16. So 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16. Make my crow's foot. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my other board. Hook my tape measure on, pull tight. 1 7/16, so 1/16. 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, and it's the line right before the 1.5 inches. Okay, now we're going to look at our instructions again. So we just went up 7/8, we just went up 1 7/16 inches. Now we need to come in the depth of this notch. So this should actually read 9/16, by the way. Okay. But I'm going to measure from the inside edge into here 1 inch. From here to here is 1 inch. So, here's my pieces. I'm going to go to the inside, inch here, and an inch this direction. So I hook my tape measure on. Here's my inch. Do my crow's foot. Now I'm not doing an inch from this side. I'm going to come here. An inch. There. So I came in from my X in that direction. Now, I'm going to get my crow's foot. When I'm using my crow's foot, I want to get as much of my lip on the board as possible. So if I used this part right here, it can move pretty easily. So I'm going to actually flip this over, clap it, okay, and then I'm going to slide it right there, pull my line, clap it, slide it, pull my line. I'm also going to bring that line over to the top. Again, making sure that this is tight. Pull my line, line it up, pull my line. I now need to bring a line down this direction. So this is when you have to be really careful. You have to make sure that this is sitting perfectly flat, because just a little bit off changes the whole angle of your line. So I'm going to squeeze it tight, line it right through my crow's foot, and pull. Now this is the part I want to get rid of, so I'm going to put an X, because I want to make it look like that right there. So let's do the same thing over here. Clap it through the crow's foot,
Hold it flat, run slow.
through the crow's foot. There's my 2. Now I've got to make sure it's tight, so it should look parallel.
We could have put it inside the hole, and that's why I drilled it.
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Now let's double check.
I'm just practicing.
If I removed this part, you'll notice our notches would be on opposite directions. So I'm going to line up my A's, and I'm going to get rid of the X. Okay, so this is for our long boards. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to cut these. We're going to cut them at the same time, and then we'll go over the short boards. I'm going to get my saw. Secure my saw down here. Now, to cut these, I'm going to cut them at the same time, because if I cut over here, it's hard to do with the right hand. So I'm going to line these up. I'm going to line up the ends. Line the ends up perfectly. And now, they're lined up perfect. I'm going to take my saw and I'm going to go to the inside of that top line right there. So let me zoom in there for you. Taking my saw and I'm going right on the line right there. So now what I'm going to do is take my clamp. I'm going to spread the clamp open by pressing this button here, slide it back. And now I'm going to tighten this. Again, making sure that this is perfectly flush, perfectly lined up. So I'm going to check. There it is. Put my hand here to secure. And now I'm only going to cut down to the bottom of that inch mark. I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm going to cut here, pull back. Okay. And now I've just cut both my pieces. I'm going to press the back button here. I'm going to keep these together and I'm going to slide over to this other notch right here. I'll line that up. I want to cut right on that line. There it is. Pull back. Again, I'm only cutting an inch down. So now with those two, I'm going to cut right in the middle just to get rid of these pieces. Again, only cutting right down to that inch mark. Release my clamp. So now these pieces should just pop out. There's my 9/16. These should be cut right down. And there's my cuts. Now, there's a couple ways you can clean these out. Number one is you can get the flat head, not the Phillips head, the flat head. And I can put it on a surface right here, flat surface. And I'm going to put my hands away and I can just press my screwdriver right down to those lines. It's kind of like a chisel. The other way you can do it, whichever you prefer, is I can take my piece and I can use my saw like a file. So I can just come here, move my piece sideways as I kind of clean that out. Okay? Now, I know that these are good cuts, so now I line these up and they should be perfectly lined up. So now, these should slide together, and you know that your cut is deep enough when this piece is perfectly flush to this one. This is called a half lap joint. Half of it's cut out here, half of it here, laps over, and we have a half lap joint. So that's how you set up and cut the long pieces, and the next video will be the short pieces.